in the UK, it all began with one group of farmers, and one turned into 5, and 5 turned into 49. And now we've got over 150 of these groups in the UK. So in each country, I think the first step should be to focus your resources on kicking off one pilot group to begin with. So you get a working example, and then you can use that example to inspire others. So what we found is that farmers quickly understand the benefits of working together instead of alone in isolation. They understand the benefits of having support, advice and training from their advisor or cluster facilitator. And they obviously benefit from better access to grants and funding. So what works well is that they immediately grasp why they should be in a cluster with their neighbours. We found that these projects can be at risk of being oversteered, so let the farmers move at their own pace. Find what they have in common. Don't feed it to them on a plate, because you'll just stamp out the fun and the creativity and the ownership. Having an online platform to support farm clusters is a really good idea. It's essential, I'd say. It's useful to have, for example, features like a map to show where other groups are, some case studies, some advice pages, so that new groups can get started and existing groups can get some inspiration. So those are the core things that work really well. So at the moment, resources online for farmers are quite piecemeal. There's all sorts of information in different places, so it's a bit of a confusing landscape. But on the other hand, beware of making a website so big and so generalised and all-encompassing that it loses relevance to individual countries or individual farmers. In this industry, one size does not fit all, so beware of that. It varies hugely, the engagement with social media, the use of email, and how you communicate with farmers, just because of the huge span in age range, in education, in knowledge, in engagement with media. So it's a minefield of complexity. No one uses the same methods of communicating and getting information, so it's a challenge to get everyone using the same methods, certainly. So I'd say make sure funding is in place and a marketing strategy is in place to promote that online resource for farmer clusters. Make sure everyone knows about it. Have regular content on there, so keep the blogs up to date, keep people coming back. Make sure all key organisations and regulators are involved with the design of it, but also the content. Yeah, I think this question is about bringing people up to speed in knowledge and training in agroecology, basically. So keeping resources and training for farmers very relevant to them and their local area will be very important, and that works well. Get them to choose the subjects in alignment with what their priorities are for their group. We should all be singing off the same hymn sheet as much as possible, so that we can compare approaches and we can compare successes in a workable and interpretable way between different groups. The kind of system for recording biodiversity at the moment is quite piecemeal. It's quite scattered in terms of its approach, especially in the UK. But we are trying to create standard ways in which farmer clusters can track their progress. You know, how are my grey partridges doing? How are my butterflies doing? If we're all using the same methods, then it will become much more trackable in terms of the outcomes that we're achieving. We're introducing big subjects like these, some of which farmers might not have come across before, some agroecological topics. So don't try to achieve much too quickly. Some subjects will be unfamiliar, so keep it simple, keep it digestible. Don't bombard them with lots and lots of information. the level of knowledge and education amongst farmers will vary hugely. Some people will know it all, some people won't know much at all. So it's about matching your training program to the needs of your individual farmers. And this is where individual advice and working on an individual level as well as in a group level will be helpful. So I'd also say from the outset, you should build in generous training allowances and build in flexibility into the funding system for farmer clusters. So we don't have direct experience of remote sensing or new technologies to survey wildlife and habitats on the farm, but it does get farmers excited, and they do like learning about new ways of doing things, new gadgets, new gizmos. So if there are things that you can take advantage of to help you monitor wildlife and habitats on the farm, you should definitely go for it and encourage it and put funding in place to allow that to happen. Yeah, so inviting local people into the project can work really well when the farmers get to a stage where they're comfortable with that. I wouldn't do that straight away. I'd take it slow with community engagement. But the people on the doorstep of the Farmer Cluster project can be a huge asset to you. In our Farmer Cluster, we have a friends group, what we call a Friends of the Martin Down Farmer Cluster group. And they are made up of people that live in the local area that have an interest in wildlife and just want to help out and want to learn more about farming and how it goes hand in hand with conservation. So those kinds of people can be worth their weight in gold if they are willing to help in the project and come out with you and learn and get to know the farmers and survey wildlife and things. They can be huge assets. The major stumbling block is funding and finding the people to get on farm and do that monitoring. So it would be good if there was more funding in place to enable more farm clusters to bring more people in to survey the land and track their progress. And I'd also be wary of getting too much emphasis on community involvement in the first place, because a lot of farmers are a bit nervous about bringing local people and the public onto farms because they might find something rare or something. So just be careful about who you bring in to do the monitoring. But it's very important, on the other hand, that it is done. Sometimes when data is, it just sits there and it's not interpreted or passed back to the farmers with positive feedback and encouragement, that's a shame and that's a problem, because the whole point of monitoring things on farm is to enthuse the farmers and use those results to inform conservation work. So it doesn't work very well when the data isn't used as it should be. At the moment in the UK, obviously we've had agri-environment schemes for a long time, which are public sector funding, and that's all very well. But we've talked about the limitations of those, and the uptake of those hasn't been quite so good in recent years. But fast up and coming is investment from the private sector. So things like developers which have environmental funds, big companies, corporations that have environmental funds. So we are increasingly seeing more and more farmers and farmer groups tentatively tapping into those funds. And wouldn't it just be amazing if we could funnel private sector funding into local donor sites of farmer clusters, where the money can be used directly to improve the environment and create habitat and measure biodiversity. There are lots of private sector money pots at the moment. It's very scattered and piecemeal. Lots of these pots that are designed to fund environmental projects, but it's not straightforward to tap into them because it's such a new thing. It's a new concept here. So it's yet to kind of be developed into a system where it's easy to funnel that money into private land. It varies. I mean, some are interested in information and feedback, and others aren't so interested. I think some of them are a lot more forward thinking than others. Some understand the value of data, and how that can make a difference to their farm, and some don't. So it's both ways. Some people will say, I would like to find out more about my grey partridges. To others, you would have to be the instigator of that suggestion. You would have to be the one saying, if we monitor grey partridges on your land, it will tell us about the wider health of your farming ecosystem that you have here. Some things you will have to help farmers interpret, there's no doubt about that, but because farms are such sort of complex businesses, they have got information coming in all the time that they have to make sense of. Weather, markets, chemical availability, vets, all sorts of things they have to interpret and make sense of to get the best outcome for their business. So I would say it varies how much synthesis they're capable of. Farmer clusters have been quite, a movement in the UK, and that's very inspiring, but we must be careful not to then take that idea and create a big sort of complex system that then falls down on other farmers in other countries. We don't want this to become another top-down initiative, so it would be better if we can spark it in other countries from the bottom up by engaging with people at a very granular level in those separate countries. So it's about taking the learnings from the UK and creating sparks in other countries, not kind of allowing this system to fall down on their heads.